we have some really important things to talk about today. So we're going to get right to it because, you guys, a lot has changed in just the first week and a half, 2 weeks after the election. So we're going to actually start there because of course, it's about housing, and it's about inventory, and it's about Trump. So the first article today is from Housing Wire. It's Trump's plan to build houses on federal land explained. So first, I want to make sure that this is understood, that the federal land is not all considered the same. It's not all preservation. It's just federal land. It's just owned by the government. It's not all designated and can never, or designated as never being able to be built, as some of our areas around here are.
Yeah, exactly.
We have like natural preserves.
Exactly.
So we're going to get into some of the details here, but like, what do you guys initially on the top of this? What do you think about the plan to build on federal land? Do you think the government should be selling land to private entities to develop and build inventory? Like, what's your initial impression of this? What do you think?
Well, if we know what the problem is and they're not doing it, then why not have someone else come in and actually, be able to do it at a scale, or be able to do it profitably, or, just be the, the champion at that, because that's what they specialize in. The government has so much things that they are responsible for. So I don't know how, they haven't, if they know that's the problem, that we need more land to be able to have more inventory to be able to build, then I think if they're not doing it, someone has to do it, because we know that's what's needed.
I mean, exactly. We're going to benefit from it. I mean, in 2018, we were short 2.5 million homes.
Yeah.
Right? If you fast forward to today, 6.5 years later, we're at between 6 to 7 million homes that are short. Like, this is just unacceptable, right? So that's why we haven't seen the 2008, because, again, it's simple economics, supply and demand. There's not enough homes.
So I think part of the disagreement that could happen here is what federal land should be used, and then how should it be used? Like, how are we going to get there? Because I think everyone understands we have a housing inventory issue, so we need to build more properties. But I think how you do it is really going to be where there's the contested parts, because part of what they're talking here about is like tax cuts. Reducing mortgage rates is more of a secondary effect, because that could help affordability. But reducing regulation is another one, allowing developers to bid on land. So, like, what do you guys think are some of the good ideas about the federal land idea, and what are some things you think maybe are not so good?
Well, definitely don't build in remote areas where nobody wants to live.
Well, actually, so can I actually make a comment about that? I was thinking about that in preparation for the show. I was thinking, there are places that might be too far off the grid to be on the grid, like legitimately on the grid, which then that makes it cost more to have our utilities done there. But like, if it's like right next to a place that's already developed, you can kind of extend your utilities in that space. That might be a more efficient way. Yeah. But if you're going to places that don't have that stuff piped and ready, you're going to end up with
so like what you're saying is don't build in Death Valley, right? As you're going to Vegas.
Definitely not.
Yeah, except who would Phoenix and Vegas. Yeah, except people do, right?
But like how you mentioned earlier, not all federal land is like non-buildable. So I feel that the areas like he mentioned, if it's close to a suburb, close to a city that's already able to have more room for people to be able to come in and build, then I think that's the smartest area. Just don't go selling land that doesn't need to be sold, but the land that makes the most sense to build on, to be able to eat.
The other thing is, we have to figure out how to incentivize these builders to want to build, right?
That's a great point.
An interesting thing that I found here, which Patrick Vince David was talking about, is in the 1970s, we built an average of 418,000 homes a year. Today, and those are just entry-level homes, right? Homes that are built, within 1,400 square feet or less.
Sure, starter homes.
Now, what he's saying is there's only 55,000.
Oh, I didn't see that. So, dang, wait. 480,000 you said?
418,000.
Oh, 418. Sorry,
418,000 units, entry-level homes,
Wow.
So, why would we decrease that, Andy? Like, why would we decrease?
Well, I think there's arguments for a lot of different reasons why that's happened. Yeah. But I mean, some of them right off the top of my head is you have the incentive, like you're talking about. Like, how much does it cost? What's the risk factors? Where can you build? And because, look, I think we need to be honest about the situation. I think, first of all, let me make this comment. I think that we've gone through such a long season of intellectual dishonesty that we need to be real about this.
Correct.
Let's be real. Some areas are not currently available to develop because of bureaucracy.
Correct.
It's red tape. So if one of the proposals is to deregulate some of that so that these places can be freed up to then be built on, then maybe that's incentive for builders.
Yeah.
I think it's also partly on the builders too, because they have to decide to want to be in that business. I don't know how many builders have gone out of business in the last 40 years. I just don't.
Well, I think
it might have been a lot.
I think the builders became very cautious in the 2008. Remember how much was being built around here?
Yeah.
A lot of builders got out of the industry because of that. They had to seek for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Overbuilt.
Well, and there was a lot of time. We're doing both things at once. We're building a lot of inventory, but we're also putting people in homes that weren't actually qualifying by the standards that we qualify people now. So it was a mismatch, if you will, in the rearview mirror. But I think it's not just one. My point in saying this is it's not just one angle of the argument. It's multiple variables here. So I think that the deregulation could be helpful. And of course, I think that could be problematic on some sorts too, because if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Exactly.
Right? So on that aspect, I mean, there's going to have to be some sort of oversight and some sort of protective measures for places that are protected and secured preservation so that they are not used for ulterior motives of capitalism.
I
if
mean,
you will.
if you really think about it, if they're building 418,000 homes and growing in 55, it's not like our population decreased.
No.
Right?
No.
I mean, back in 1970, we had about 200 million people, and now we're at 340, more or less. So it's like we need more homes.
Yeah.
The rate of
at the
development,
rate that we're developing, we're just not going to catch up.
Yeah, the rate of development is significantly slowed. And you know, I think part of that is it's not the appetite though. It's certainly not the appetite of the American buyer because we love it. We love homes. We want to buy homes. We want to have shelter overhead. Like that's kind of this whole thing. We've had an entire 50 plus years of the American dream. When you say that, everybody knows what that means. It's not there's not some new American dream. Well, unless you're talking to younger people, the new American dream is like freedom and flexibility of things. But
it's different.
Traditionally, what does the American dream mean?
It's different.
What does it mean traditionally?
Family, security,
having a house.
Yeah.
Right.
So back at that time, this is another little fact that I love that freaking what he was talking about because it makes perfect sense of why we're trying to get this. Why, our president debate, like they didn't debate that we need housing. When it came to Kamala and Trump, it was like that was one of the most important things is how do we develop. Back in that time, it took a person 2.5 years to save up for a down payment. Fast forward today, it's taking 8 years, 7 to 8 years.
Wow.
8 years. Well, that's also
7 to 8 years.
And that 8 years includes also the increased cost of all the other things across the board and the price of the house you're trying to buy.
Exactly.
Hey, if you could have bought a house 8 years ago, would you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your savings every year got to adjust for the cost of
living.
Right. Oh
and if you really think about it, what was the average sale of a home at that time?
50 to 60, 70?
$23,000. You guys imagine that, right?
Listen, in 8 years, all my kids are out of the house.
Yeah.
I don't need a house no more.
And we keep going back to this, but that's what we're saying. Nowadays, we're starting to see more of the parents helping their kids with the down payment. We've been seeing a lot of that.
Yep.
And now we're understanding why.
So if you think
get them out of the house.
So if we have kind of inventory. If we have incentive on one side, what are some of the things that would incent builders? Obviously making money, but like what are the things that we need to get our arms around in order to make this happen?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like allow the builders to be able to keep that revenue for them, right? And not be able to tax them so much for how they're building or the materials they're obtaining. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with the taxation, how much they're going to take home. And I think with this new rule, what they're saying is like, we're going to allow them to take home money now. So that's going to be like an incentive.
I just thought of, how in San Diego, they have the ADU program where if you pick from the pre-approved permit, you have a fast track permitting process.
Yeah.
Or not pre-approved floor plan. You get the fast track. I wonder if you could do that at scale. In some of these areas that maybe they have had recent development in the last 5 or 10 years and maybe the safety standards are still there, maybe you can dust off some of that and then just continue that building.
I agree.
That might be I didn't think about that beforehand.
Easier way.
That might be a way to actually expand into some other areas and kind of just, pull it off the shelf and then go redo some of that stuff. Rerun that play.
Very true. Yes.
I'm a little bit hesitant because I don't know the answer about like what the material costs are. Yeah. Like what they're going to be in the new year, because again, there's also talk about taxes and tariffs and inflation's kind of still sticky, even though they're not using the word. I'm gonna say it's sticky. Yeah. Inflation's sticky, but I do think that's going to be one of those things where you kind of have to keep an eye on, because if the cost of goods and the cost of labor don't come down, it's going to be harder for those builders to justify.
No, exactly. Well, we're already seeing it. If you look at the average buyer buying a home right now, what's their age?
I don't even know.
Anywhere 28 to 36.
38. 38 years old is the average right now.
Wow. I was going to say 24 to 60.
So you're saying earlier right now, my daughters are gone in 8 years. Well, I don't know
buy a
that
house.
necessarily they're going to be able to buy a house at that time.
Oh, they're still going to be with me?
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty
okay.
much.
You girls, you hear that? Okay.
Yeah, I know Ashton and Dylan will.
I'm talking to the camera like they're watching this show. My girls ain't watching this. Okay, so what else do you guys got your eyes on when it comes to this? Like, are there any things you're like, hey, we better be you're wary of anything? Are you concerned about any of this? Or are you like all for it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I know it also talked about affordable housing. And so, you know how a lot of people say, yeah, we're all for affordable housing. And I love the article says, well, when it comes to building affordable housing of where like these senators, these people live, they don't want it there. Right? They don't want it there. And we already see how much affordable housing we have here in our area. In front of Walmart, there's one. It's not so bad.
You know what? Well, I mean,
it's that selective support part. Like, oh, I'll support it if it's in someone else's neighborhood, right?
But I did like how it actually says that. You know, it cracked me up.
But also, like, unfortunately, even though like I could tell why people would say I don't want low housing in our area. I mean, not everybody that comes is going to be a bad a bad egg, but there is chances that crime might increase a little bit, and people are like, I would rather not want that, rather than somebody that is a regular family, they're able to afford. I mean, you got to look at it both ways.
Well, I think that's a lot of social stats that you're playing with, because every municipality, I'm not saying you're wrong, it's just every municipality is different. Like if you go to Escondido, they're going to have a different crime rate than they're going to have in Del Mar, they're going to have in La Mesa, than you're going to have in Chula Vista. So there's just demographic differences too, based on population of concentration of population as well as the total population itself. Like, I don't know that a lot of people really understand that Chula Vista is the second largest city in the entire county by population. It's the city of San Diego, number one, actual San Diego proper, and then Chula Vista. So then kind of like after that, it's like, you're talking about like pieces.
And look how much we're building, and we have a lot of affordable housing around us,
Yeah, there has to be.
Yeah.
It's so dense.
And I think it's going to be a part of whatever the plan is. They're going to say, hey, you want to do this? So you want to be in on it? Cool. You want to be in on the, I'm going to say it. If you're going to be in on the take, you're going to have to do something as part of it too. So you're going to have to allot X percentage of places that are going to go to low income housing or government subsidized housing. And that's just going to be the way it is.
I actually recall trying to submit offers on certain houses, and it says, hey, this is a low income housing. You got to have 5 people or more. You got to verify that everybody lives there. You got to have a utility bill. So, and I had one of our buyers, can we get this? I'm like, you're missing about 5 people in your family, man. But that's what they said right away. Like, you need to have all these characteristics to be able to get approved.
I mean, I have a friend that it's a 3-bedroom. It's a 3-bedroom property, and they pay $1,100.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get that? Back in the day, I mean, they increase your rents gradually, not like 5%, whatever, but they increase them gradually. And when they first started, it was like 8 and change. I'm like, listen, your mortgage payment right now is going to be easily for something like that. It's going to be like $5,000 to $5,500.
Yeah.
So I think you're in a good place right now.
I do think that inventory coming to the market will help. But again, let's be realistic. This isn't going to be tomorrow. It's not a light switch, and it's not like you're buying something off the shelf and you're just like plopping it there. This is going to take time, because even once you like grade the land, it still takes. There's a long runway for handing the keys to someone in a brand new home. So even if some things get enacted right away, it will not see the market for another 18, 24, or even 36 months.
Exactly.
Let's be real.
With this article, what I like about it, it put everything in perspective. It talked about even, with migrant workers, people who don't have documents, and we have a lot of construction people that work here that don't have those documents and are working here. So it's going to affect the cost of all that stuff. So we have to be strategic. The tariffs that they're trying to implement here, right? Like, all that stuff is going to have a huge impact. So I like that they put that in perspective for the normal person to just read and see and understand.
I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot about that part in there, but it's the cost and it's also the speed, because if let's say we lose a certain percentage of the workforce that's already helping in this area, then that's going to delay then. And you see this in even more minor construction projects. We're like, we're down from 4 guys this week to 2. Okay, well, guess what? Half the work's getting done this week. Now your project takes longer.
And these builders have carrying costs for all that.
Oh, yeah.
So all of this is important. They need to meet the timelines because they need to close out a certain time. Because remember, they get investors. They made a promise to an investor that you're going to get X amount of rate of return for your investment. And that's why they're going even to a private sector, which they can build for cheaper because this is what they're able to do.
Yeah, I know we are definitely more on the side of being builder sympathizers, but we need housing. So I am going to lean towards them providing fair and decent housing at a good price. So anything that will help bring that to the market is going to be welcomed by me.
Yeah. I mean, I put a good idea. If the plan were to move forward, the federal government, which controls about 650 million acres of land, would invite developers to bid on parcels provided they commit to maintaining a percentage of units of affordable rates for local communities.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, they should do that.
agree.
I think it has to be part of the plan because again, if you just like open Pandora's box and there's no regulation, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But if it's too tight, that's a bad idea too. So I think we need to meet somewhere in the middle on that.